God eftermiddag allihopa. Gunnar Lewandowska heter jag, generalsekreterare på Sveriges museer. Och vi ska ju dra igång den här serien nu om samtidskonst tillsammans med KIN. Och Sveriges museer, vi är en branschorganisation för museerna i hela Sverige. Vi har 240 museer som medlemmar. Och många av dem jobbar med konst. Och tanken med den här serien är att vi verkligen vill se vad det finns för möjligheter och inspirationsmöjligheter för museet att arbeta med samtidskonst. Och då kommer vi under 2025 och 2026 att befinna oss på olika museer runt om i Sverige med internationella gäster. Och vi börjar idag här uppe i Kiruna. Det ska bli jättekul. Maria, vill du komma upp?
Tackar, Gunnar. So, hello everyone and warmly welcome to KIN Museum of Contemporary Art. Welcome to you in the space here on the 5th floor at KIN, and those of you who are joining us online and those of you who might watch much later. I'm so pleased that we can launch this series, which is a collaboration with Sveriges museer, and the generous invitation that came to me and the museum from you. And the starting point is to think about how we can learn from art and artists, and as you mentioned, Gunnar, how we can be inspired by how curators and others have worked with contemporary art in museum contexts. And this can be museums that deal with art, contemporary art and other types of art, but it can also be other types of museums. And it was important when we discussed this series to spread out in the country and also to have impulses from abroad to enrich the discussion in Sweden and also elsewhere. So today we're kicking off with Jagna Lewandowska, curator at the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, which is a museum with a history, but it's also a museum with a brand new building. And one of the things that is fascinating about the museum is its exhibition history. It's very well known in the world of contemporary art, but also urbanistically, the location of the museum. It is not in the outskirts. It is in the center. It's even at the very heart of Warsaw. And I find that so interesting, how a museum of modern art today can be given such a prominent placement in the capital of Poland. After this seminar, and I will soon welcome you, Jagna, to the stage, we will move south to Gothenburg, to Röhsska Museet, which is a craft and design museum. And there, Victoria Lynn, who is the director of Tarawara Museum, south of Melbourne in Australia, will talk about their program and also about how they are working closely with the First Nation people on that land. We move on after that to Stockholm, to Arkdes, and to a presentation by Tone Hansen, who is the director of the Munch Museum in Oslo, which has undergone big developments in the last few years, and an interesting aspect of their work is how they work with younger people and also how they work with new media, among other things. The fourth stop will be at Silvermuseet in Arjeplog, which is in the same region as KIN Museum of Contemporary Art, the region of Norrbotten. And Arjeplog is a wonderful small museum with a collection of Sami silver, but also other objects in an old, I believe, school building. And our speaker there will be Manolo Borja Villel, legendary museum director who for many years led the National Museum Reina Sofia in Madrid. And in several ways, I would say, have also created new paths for how to work with collections and contemporary art. And the fifth and final stop will be at the Ethnographic Museum in Stockholm, which is part of Världskulturmuseerna, an umbrella state organization for ethnographic material and different collections. We will then be enjoying a presentation by Doreen Mende, who is a curator and who is known for her ambitious and deep research into topics such as photography and the former GDR and solidarity movements, and who, as the head of the research department at the Staatliche Kunstsammlungen Dresden, the state collections in Dresden, has embarked on curatorially inventive projects involving artists being able to work closely with objects in the collection. So that's a little teaser for what will come. And today we will hone in on the Museum of Modern Art and your presentation, Jagna, Museum is a Team. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I have time, that's good, because I have a tendency to prolongate. Please shout at me at some point. Hello, everyone. I'm Jagna Lewandowska. I'm the curator at the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw. Thank you very much for coming in person. People online can see this beautiful view outside. I think it's a privilege. And first of all, let me extend my gratitude to the organizers of this series of seminar. It sounds great, the program, and I will attend online the rest of it for sure. And it is a great honor for the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw to open the cycle of those seminars that will unfold in the museum across Sweden in the months to come. This initiative does not only provide us with a platform, I think, to share experiences, but also with the opportunity to collectively reflect on what museum can be today. That's why I will focus on very different activities that we have outside also of the exhibition program. And thank you, Maria, for the invitation and guidance. And the title of the lecture is Museum is a Team. It was proposed by Joanna Metkowska, the director of our museum. Joanna insisted on a formulation that captures something often overlooked in common imaginaries about the museums, that the museum is not only a building of walls, and we know it because we just built a new museum. But this is also storerooms, the team of professional experts curating programs, of course, and preserving collections. But the team here is understood much more broadly. It is the entire staff, but also the artists who co-create the program, the audiences, and you will hear how many audiences we have now, who engaged with the dialogue, and the wider urban and social context, which Maria mentioned, that is very complicated. We are hard in the city, which the museum is situated. So let's start. That's our new building. It opened in 2024 at Plac Defilad. Now it is called the Central Square in Warsaw, in the very heart of Warsaw. And this makes it especially visible. It is very complicated space over the metro station near the ghetto, Jewish ghetto area, where history entangles with the shopping malls, and it's very, very, very vibrant. And it shows that the museum is not an island. It is embodied in the living tissue of the city on a square, which is a contested and symbolic space. So being a team here means acknowledging our porousness. And this word I will use many, many times, and I like it, and I will overuse it in this lecture for sure, because it perfectly matches the porosity of the white concrete from which our building is built. But porosity here is also a metaphor of the way we are always in the relation and always shaped by voices coming from outside as much as coming from within. So this is the interior of our museum, and the staircase that became like very Instagram emblematic place in the heart of it. This notion of openness, of being shaped by the city and its contested spaces, also extend to how museum understand its own collection. It is in this context that one of the earliest works takes on particular significance. It's the work from our collection, offering a length through which to reflect on challenges facing the modern museum today. Wróblewski's painting and image of the museum, because the title of it is The Museum, as autopsy table surrounded by confused audience staring at human remains, can be read as striking metaphor for the collapse of a worldview and more broadly for the crisis of the museums in its traditional forms. It marks a starting point for thinking about the modern museum as an institution confronting the fragmentation of the world's view, a world's image. Its role is no longer limited to the gathering objects, but weaving them into the new constellations of meaning and proposing a vision of the world. Museum, the gouache, was very first work donated to the museum by the Society of Friends of the Museum. And it continues to occupy a special place in the collection, speaking both about the museum and its own behalf. When during the recent conversation after the opening, the curatorial team of MSN was asked the question, what is the heart of the museum, the one center of symbolic act that defines it? Every curator gave a different answer, and I think it's very interesting and good also, because this diversity itself is telling. Unlike some older institutions in Poland that can point to a singular funding moment, funding event, or gesture like Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, one of the greatest, I think, collections in Europe, rooting in the avant-garde European. Our museum is still young, officially established in 2005, and still in the process of defining itself now, also in the context of the new building. Its identity is not anchored to one of the myths of the events, but in the constellation of figures and legacies. And if we were named to those who have profoundly shaped our sense of purpose, those names stand out, in my opinion. This is Alina Szapocznikow, Oskar and Zofia Hansen, and Zofia Kulik. Each of them, in different ways, insisted that art must not be isolated from the life and society, and their works continue to orient how we imagine what a museum should be. Not a mausoleum, but a living place of confrontation. Alina Szapocznikow, the great Polish sculptor, she is in our collection, of course, and she survived the Holocaust and post-war communism. She created works that remain brutally honest about vulnerability and desire. Her fragmented casts of her own body were both memorials and assertions of life. In our collection and exhibition, Szapocznikow represents a feminist and deeply existential perspective, one that resonates with contemporary audiences across generations. And the traveling exhibition Awkward Objects from 2009, and that was curated by Joanna Metkowska, and Agata Jakubowska played a crucial role in introducing Szapocznikow to the international scene. And that's one of the artists that I feel are very in the soul of our museum. And in the recent collection exhibition, she was present in 3 sections out of 4. So you can see how important her legacy is. Alina Szapocznikows' monumental sculpture, Friendship, which was in the main hall of Palace of Culture in Warsaw. That's the building that is very close to our museum now, gave by Stalin, showing of power. From 1955 to 1992, now exists as a fragmentary ruin, its broken forms recalling the afterlives of once heroic public monuments. The work allegorically depicts a Polish worker and a Soviet soldier striding together, intended to symbolize the brotherly unity of the two nations in socialist realist fashion. Yet the sculpture's later mutilation, I told Maria about it, it was during the decommunization in the 90s. They were trying to take it off the building and throw it out because it's made of metal, or to make something else from it. It didn't fit into the door of Palace of Culture, so they cut its hands with a banner. So this is witness of history. An object was in complete state, now invites critical reflection on memory, power, and loss. This sense of absence and fractured memory resonates powerfully with friendship when friendship is brought at the newest collection show, which will last, I think, 2 more weeks, and then we are starting the program that will circulate. It's giving a new meaning with the dialogue with Nikita Kadan's Gazelka. That's the banner you can see on the right, iron flag, forged from the wreckage of the van found during the occupation of Russia in Ukraine. In this context, literally, this restores the missing banner and transposing ideological void into the material reflection of contemporary violence. The rusted pierced metal of the van, simultaneously emblematic of everyday devastation of war, reclaims the visual and symbolic authority lost in Warsaw decades earlier. Kadan's work highlights how objects, even when damaged, retain agency. They testify, accuse, and articulate histories that official narratives often suppress. Together, Friendship and Gazelka, from a layered meditation on the shifting meanings of public monuments, on the collapse of ideological certainty, and on the resilience of memory, showing how absence of banner can be as charged as it presents, and how the debris of the past can be adapted into a powerful visual reckoning with present. The Hansens, Oskar and Zofia, developed the visionary concepts of open form as approach to architecture and art that emphasized participation and agency of the user. For them, art was not about fixed moments, but about structures that could host change. This legacy is crucial for us, especially when we think about museums not as temples, but open frameworks adaptable to the collective needs. Part of our collection is located not in Warsaw, but 70 kilometers away on the sandy banks of the River Bug. The Hansen House in Shumin, the one you can see on the right, the wooden summer home of architects, is at once a satellite branch of the museum and a unique part of our collection. It allows us to expand the idea of what museum can be, moving beyond the confines of the white cube into lived architecture. Built gradually from 1968 onwards, the house embodies the Hansen's theory of the open form, a vision of architecture as a frame for life, adaptable and activated by its users. It is not a static exhibit, but a structure that comes alive in the presence of people, animals, plants, and time itself. The house bears the traces of the family who lived there and the collaborative ethos that defined its making. Neighbors and friends of Hansens were coming. They were building this house together along with their children. And Oscar's affection for birds resulted in a delicate dove coat, which Zofia always called his most perfect work, that was standing and is standing in the garden there. And instruments of teaching were hung under the terrace roof. Hansen was a very great lecturer at Academy of Arts in Warsaw. While a steel exhibition structure brought back from the Venice Biennial in 1977 became a trellis for grape in the orchard. This seamless blending of art, pedagogy, and everyday life was central to Hansen's architectural philosophy. For Hansen's, whose urban housing projects won international recognition, the Schumin House was one of the few opportunities to build freely without the constraints of post-war mass housing policy. Painted lines guide visitors from exterior to interior, while abstract walls provide moments of visual surprise. The building is modest in scale, but radical in intent, a manifesto of participation and process designed to be continuously reinterpreted. In 2017, museum acquired the house from Hansen's family, and since then it has become a place of intimate encounters. Small groups gather around Hansen's table. Students and scholars use it as workshop and study place. Families experience it as a space for learning and play. In this way, the Hansen home is both an architectural monument and living classroom, a continuation of Hansen's vision that architecture should democratize rather than dictate. And crucially, the Hansen House is not only the outpost of our institution, but also a part of our collection. To acquire it, it was to acknowledge that building itself can be a museum object, one that embodies theory, practice, and memory. Alongside Oscar Hansen's early Parisian paintings, sketchbooks, architectural designs, the house expands our understanding of what contemporary art collection can really hold. Not just discrete works, but whole environments, contexts, and ways of living. At the time of climate crisis and accelerating consumerism, the Hansen's prioritization of life, nature, and processes over the objecthood and permanence feels not only like historically significant, but urgently contemporary. And Zofia Kulik, the last of the founders, symbolic founders of the museum, an artist whose monumental photographic composition combine political critique with intimate narratives, embodies another crucial dimension: how to work with archives, symbols, and images in a way that destabilize power. Her works remind us that the museum's role is not only to collect, but also to question the mechanism of representation itself. On the first floor of our new building, we have dedicated an entire room to Kwiek Kulik archive, conceived by Zofia Kulik as spatial installation on its own right. It consists of three interconnected elements. The large photo montage, you can see on the left, ambassadors of the past, and the wall-size composition, and structure, glass structure in the middle, housing the archival holdings themselves. Together, these components function not only as a presentation of documents, but also as an artwork that embodies the duo's lifelong exploration of process. It's also a documentation and the politics of artistic practice. And then when somebody wants to do a research, they are letting us know, and they can work near the little table inside of this glass cube. Yeah, so maybe I will. Facing the entrance to Kulik's Digital College, Ambassadors of the Past, produced in 2006 and updated last year, especially for the museum. It reinterprets Hans Holbein's the Younger painting, The Ambassadors from 1533, I think, replacing the French diplomats. I unfortunately didn't put the original, but it's quite famous, with Kulik and Przemysław Kwiek, who worked together between 1971 and 1987 under the name Kwiek Kulik. In place of Holbein's Renaissance symbols of astronomy and mathematics, the table between them is filled with cameras, projectors, tape recorders, and typewriters, the very tools they use to record and transmit ephemeral actions. The substitution is pointed. Where Holbein showed the instruments of universal knowledge, Kwiek presented the technologies that enabled an unofficial process-based art to exist under the late socialism. Holbein's original painting famously contains a distorted skull, the symbol of mortality, down in the composition. In Kulik's version, that anamorphic memento mori is replaced by photographs of art institutions. In 2006, it was the Ujazdowski Castle, another institution in Warsaw, and later in our version, our museum building. You can see on the carpet there is this building stretched in the perspective. For years, Kulik fought to have their practice and that of their peers recognized as equal to traditional media, even attempting to create the new media section within the Polish Artists Association. The eventual acquisition of the archive by our museum in 2011 and its prominent installation here today marks both the success of the battle and the warning that institutionalization should not petrify what was once alive, experimental, and open-minded. The Kwiek Kulik archive, ordered and structured for decades by Zofia Kulik herself in her suburban home, is now part of our institutional core. Yet its presence in the gallery is a constant reminder that the archives are never neutral. They are political, they are performative, and they themselves are a form of art. And you can see the example here. As a proof, and this is Karol Radziszewski classic queer action entitled Fag Fighters. In 2007, Karol Radziszewski called into being Fag Fighters, a fictitious fag gang with pink bakalavas as their trademark. They were originally made by the artist's grandmother. And now I think many people are producing them. This time the Fag Fighters showed up at the museum, infiltrating the collection and exhibition halls with their sensual bodily presence, and they gathered in this cube inside the archive. And these three trajectories, Szapocznikow embodied vulnerability and resilience, the Hansens opened participatory forms, and Kulik's critical engagement with images and archives are not simply references we preserve. They are living cornerstones forming a kind of dispersed but durable foundation of the museum. From them emerge three distinct sensibilities that continue to inform our practices today: the urgency of the body and the lived experience, the openness to participation and collective agency, and the commitment to critique and reflection on structures of power. I believe that much of what defines our new museum on Plac Centralny is ambitious. Its responsibilities and even its contradictions grows out of these intertwined legacies. They are less a single origin story than a set of guiding voices whose echoes still shape the paths we are taking as we move forward. Of course, there are those who are advocate for writing history entirely anew, and I am fully aware that the museum now operates in a different scale, in a different place, and in the new building. Yet the above trajectories and artistic positions remain valuable foundation, a poetic methodologies that is not so easily to left behind, and I think one that perhaps should not be, for it has become part of our bloodstream, you can say, in the museum. It's visible not only in the exhibition program, but in the public program that was super vibrant since the beginning of the museum, as we were an institution without the collection and without the building for 20 years almost. There were some buildings, but they were temporarily. Another essential chapter in the museum's formation was the period when we did not yet have our permanent building. For over a decade, the museum operated in Emilia Pavilion, which you can see here, a modernist furniture showroom, repurposed for our temporary home, but it was never like a proper exhibition hall. There was too much light. It was very complicated, but it had this great ability to attract people who were just coming from the street. And at the time we had free exhibitions, so it was always crowded as far as I remember. And I really miss the vibe from that environment. The museum was porous then, experimental and deeply connected to the city daily rhythms. And on the right you can see not on the right but here, Emilia Auditorium. In Emilia, public programs were not secondary to the exhibitions. They were our lifeblood of the institution. Lectures, screenings, performance, and discussions unfolded side by side with exhibitions, creating a vibrant agora for Warsaw citizens. For many people, the museum was less about seeing objects and more about the being in conversation with artists, with histories, with pressing social issues. It was during this time in 2010 then I entered the museum myself as an intern at the beginning, and I joined the program of Kino Museum, an experimental film platform that tested how cinema could exist in this museum context many years ago. The earliest years of the museum were marked by gestures that revealed both frustration and creativity. In 2012, during the Night of the Museums, the night when the museums are open and free for public, two artists, Thomas Phifer and Tomasz Partyka, impatient with the endless delays in building the museum, and it was just a few years that we waited much more longer, staged a performance near the construction site. Wearing hard hats and fluorescent vests, they poured the first symbolic foundation of the museum themselves. They just brought the gears and did it. It was an improvised but deeply meaningful act, a reminder that institutions are not built only of concrete, but also of shared determination and imagination. Central Square, that's the new plan of the square, the expansive plaza before the Museum of Modern Art and Palace of Culture and Science, is more than a public space. It is a pulsating civic context of the museum. Redesigned by a collective following a public competition, the square reimages the pre-war urban form. Fragmented walkways trace the patterns of former streets. Grassy expanses trace the outlines of lost courtyards, and over 100 trees anchor new layers of memory and shade. It is the plan of the square, how it looked before the Second World War, that destroyed almost all buildings being built there. And it looks like this right now. It's the first time we see some green color near this place. To Central Square functions as the museum's outward-facing forum, a public vestibule without the borders, inviting visitor into a dialogue between contemporary art, urban memory, and everyday life. When we speak about the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, designed by Thomas Phifer, we are talking about a building that was conceived not only as a home for art, but also as a civic gesture to the city. It stands right on Plac Centralny, next to the Palace of Culture and Science, and it deliberately assets itself with its clear white concrete form. The simplicity is striking, but it is also generous. It doesn't compete with the art inside. Instead, it creates a frame, a neutral canvas, something that allows both the works and the visitors to take center stage. That's the visualization of the finished project. Now the second building is being built nearby, the gray one, and it will be a theater, also designed by Thomas Phifer. Inside Phifer's vision becomes more evident. The museum is organized horizontally, with spaces that feel less like closed boxes and more like city rooms. They are filled with natural light, they open toward the city, though carefully placed windows, and they invite you to pause, to look, and to gather. At the heart of the building is this remarkable double staircase that hangs there, and it is also a place of circulation, but encounter. People are standing there looking at the perspective. So it's the first time the staircase that normally has this only like useful function is also part of the exhibition space. One of the most important elements of the design of the building and its philosophy is the ground floor. The level is fully open, free of charge. Some people are just treating the museum now as a shortcut from this very busy street to the square, and accessible to everyone. You don't need to ticket to walk in and to sit in the cafe. You can browse through the bookshop and take part in public programs that often spill into the space. This is the photo from the auditorium. In many ways, the museum's, I think, like a living room, a space that belongs as much to the city as to the institution. And what's exciting is the way different projects inhabit the building in unexpected, even parasitic ways. Performances, workshop, or community initiatives often take place in corners, in circulation areas, in places that are not traditional white cube. These interventions remind us that the museum is alive, not a fixed monument, but organism constantly being used, tested, and reimagined. And we opened the building in October last year without the artworks. It was just a space because it was the only occasion we could do this. And there were a lot of performative programs, dance, movement. And yeah, that was controversial for many because people automatically associate museum sometimes with collection. And yeah, but I also miss this period of time when we had like very empty, clean spaces. It will never be like this again. This very structure of the ground floor of our new building already embodies the spirit of collaboration. It is in many ways a tribute to the open character of our previous temporary homes, where the boundaries between institution and public were never rigid. Here the ground floor has been conceived as an agora, a civic hall that we share freely. This openness provokes collaborations on a broad scale. Artists, cultural organizers, collectives, and community groups are often not simply invited, but entrusted with the space itself. Sometimes it is as simple as giving over the room. For some groups, a corner or a staircase landing, allowing others to inhabit the museum, to test its walls, and to make it their own. In this way, the building itself becomes a collaborator, encouraging us to see the museum less as a fortress of art and more as a host of shared life. We're even planning some VR project that are using the space virtually, and we will see how it goes. And that leads us to collaborative part of our program. Another defining feature of our institution, it is commitment to collaboration, both locally and internationally. On the local level, the establishment of the Social Council of the Museum has been a pioneer step. The Social Council of the Museum was established to strengthen the institution connection with its broader social and cultural environment, ensuring that the museum remains responsive to the dynamic life of the city. By bringing together a diverse group of individuals, most of whom are not directly involved in art world, the Council introduces a wide range of knowledge, perspective, and approaches to the museum's programming. Its members represent various Warsaw communities and social spheres, allowing the museum to engage with local experiences, urban energies, public sentiments, social initiatives, and emergent ideas in a very informed way. The Council principal responsibility is to define the key issues, challenges, and thematic priorities that the museum addresses through its public program. And each set of priorities guides the allocation of at least 50% of the public program's budget. This framework positions the Council not merely as an advisory body, but as an active participant in the development of the museum's institutional vision and the public mission. Another project is the Common Museum, realized by independent researcher and artist Michał Laskowski in collaboration with Museum and Stocznia Foundation, and this is the similar form, but of the collaboration with artists and creative communities. So we have those two organs. Together, these initiatives illustrate two complementary models of collaboration, one rooted in civic participation and local perspectives, the other in artistic partnerships and shared institutional resources. Both expand the museum's role beyond that of traditional exhibition space, positioning it instead as a platform where diverse communities can co-shape cultural life and contribute to a more inclusive and dynamic public mission. Internationally, the museum has long been an active member of Internationale, a confederation of museums and other cultural institutions across Europe. Manuel, that will be here, he was for years also part of it. This network allows us to share resources, knowledge, and projects that transcend national borders and embodies the conviction that cultural institutions must act in solidarity, especially in times of political fragmentation. Soon we will host the exhibition, which you can see on the screen, Near East, Far West, Kiev Biennial 2025, a project that underscores our commitment to being a platform for voices from regions in conflict and to amplifying perspectives that are often marginalized in a global circuit. The exhibition that is now being installed in MSN is curated by the consortium of curators from Internationale and will feature over 10 new artist commissions alongside works from the members' collections and loans, international loans. And it opens in our museum on the 3rd of October, so maybe we'll have an opportunity to come. As we can read on the Internationale website, Kiev Biennale takes place in times of ongoing wars, occupations, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, including Russia's invasion on Ukraine and Israel's brutal operation in Gaza, and broader fascist turn in global politics. It reckoning with injustice and atrocities committed by the imperialism and colonialism of today. Kyiv Biennale reflects with historical consciousness on failed solidarities and internationalisms. It does this across with the curator's name as Middle East Europe, a term encompassing Central Eastern Europe, the former Soviet East, and the Middle East. Another tool that the museum have is, of course, the collection. We didn't have many opportunities to show it till today. There were some exhibitions, but in our temporal spaces and also the guest institutions that were hosting us. But the collection is always a pillar, and now after this show we are really appreciating it, as well as the spaces that we have it in the new building, because we can be really close to the artworks. Unlike other institutions, we have the rare privilege and challenge of building a collection from the scratch, but in the 21st century. That's why I probably in the collection we have like 40% of women, I think, which is really nice thing to say, and we are really working on this to be at least half-half. This means we do not inherit a canon, but we must constantly ask what should a contemporary art museum collect and why. In 2004, Piotr Uklański's work, untitled John Paul II, had already entered the collection. That was the first work that was bought directly from the artist to the collection. The work documented a large-scale action in Sao Paulo, where the artist assembled 3,500 soldiers into a living portrait of the Polish Pope. This striking image quickly took an unexpected meaning. It was reproduced on the billboard in the city center when the museum was going to be built, and a few months later the Pope died. So automatically it became a temporary shrine where people were leaving flowers and candles, and it was we couldn't really, predict this. Such unpredictable transformations have been a recurring theme in the life of the collection, of our collection, as this is something really present and nowadays reality. Joanna Mytkowska in the catalog for the collection exhibition from 2014 in the heart of the country. So like imagining this building. She wrote, "In the heart of the country yawns an emptiness. The geographical center of Poland, the very center of Warsaw, is empty. Plac Defilad, the central square, is an abandoned place, the place of culture. The palace of culture, once the symbolic core, is surrounded by deserted space. A temporary parking lot, and among the cars still stands the honor tribune from the times when May Day parades marched past it. The eagle without the crown decorating it now presides over travelers exposed to sun, rain, and wind as they wait for the transport at a makeshift bus station. It is here that the museum is to be built, and the task of museum's collection is to fill the void in the heart." So that were the words over 10 years ago, and when I look outside the window I can see like similar emptiness to be filled, and this is a great responsibility but also an occasion to collaborate on this. Our first large-scale presentation of the collection in the new building that is about to finish in 2 weeks was tellingly titled "Impermanent For-Time the Collection." Instead of presenting a definitive narrative, we offered 4 different takes, 4 curatorial constellations that together challenged the very idea of fixed canon. Rather than imposing one grand narrative, the show is divided into 4 parallel chapters, each offering a different perspective of the same historical period, the 1950s to the present, because that's our collection time. The guiding principle was idea of the moving canon. A collection in this view is not a closed set of masterpieces to be enshrined, but a dynamic field of relations constantly open to reinterpretation. Works are not mute objects, they are active agents that acquire new meanings depending on the context in which they are shown, the discourses they encounter, and the audiences they meet. Museum has chosen to construct its collection not as a fixed canon, but as a series of parallel constellations that sometimes clash, contradict, or overlap, but always remain in motion. The first of this story revolves around the banner, the story I told you about the Shapochnikov work. From here, the exhibition moves into the second story about the plastic, bodies, commodities, and fetishes. This is the work by Magdalena Bakanowicz, who made textiles great again in the few decades back, when the textile was still like the useful towards the main source of art, and she made those huge objects hanging in the galleries and site-specific also. This section follows the transformation of desire and consumption from the Cold War to the present. It uses the metaphor of the plastic body, a body that desires and is desired, the body both artificial and profoundly human. While socialism promised equality, it's also meant chronic shortages and longing for consumer goods. Plastic, light and colorful became a substitute dream of modern life, celebrated on both sides of the Iron Curtain. And those sculptures by Alina Shapochnikov that I was showing from the resin, they were also lamps, so we are showing also the usage of them. The third thread in the exhibition is called the inside-out world. Here we ask, can art re-enchant the world? Modernity, as Max Weber famously argued, was built on disenchantment, on rationalization, efficiency, and control. Against this, artists across history have sought to reclaim imagination, myth, and spirituality as tools of resistance. And last chapter is titled Facade on the Ruins of Modernity. Here the question is whether modernity, with its fate and progress, growth and supremacy of culture over nature, can survive the catastrophes it has unleashed: climate disaster, colonial violence, political collapse. The works gathered in this part of the exhibition invite us to look at modernity not as a triumphant story, but as a sequence of ruins. This is Monika Sosnowska, an artist also very present and important for our collection. And this is an interesting story because during the building of the new building, we already had to plan where she can hang. And there are only two places in the museum that we could hang this work, as it is very heavy and big. In this sense, the transition from history to the collection to its first presentation in the museum permanent home feels like a natural continuation of this restless movement. The collection, long in the making and shaped by many, many voices, now finds itself inhabiting a space where it can be seen anew, not as a closed chapter, but as a beginning. The new building does not so much stabilize the collection as give it a stage on which its shifting meanings can unfold in dialogue with the present. It is not coincident, indeed. It is almost provocatively so that the inaugural exhibition is titled The Impermanent. The museum did not slow down and deliberately undermines the idea of permanence usually associated with collection displays. And this was indeed broadly discussed, that we decided to stop the collection show at some point. And we are still, trying and rethinking. We will show another collection show in collaboration with another institution, so it will be a different format, but it will last much longer. And we are not, blocked to the vision that we will someday have the permanent collection show, because as we so it's needed. The public wants to have something stable as well. But I don't think stable for us means like forever. It's like 2 years max or a year. And now this is the permanent collection, but in the environment that is changing all the time. Brudno Sculpture Park, inaugurated in 2009, functions as an open-air extension of the Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw, effectively becoming a living branch of its collection. Unlike a conventional gallery, the park situates contemporary sculpture within the urban and natural environment, allowing works to be experienced in dialogue with local residents, everyday life, and seasonal changes. The collection includes both permanent and temporary installations, ranging from Paweł Althammer's garden-like sculpture to Susan Phillips' sound work, You Are Not Alone, which transforms the park into the dynamic auditory space. And Rikrit Tiravania, a tea house, a sculptural pavilion serving a venue for workshop, educational programs, and community gatherings. By situating this in Brudno, the museum extends its mission beyond the walls of the White Cube, offering free and open access to art while fostering encounters between contemporary artistic practices, the environment, and the social life. The park's layered history as a 1970s public green space designed on former allotments, enriched with nature, fruit trees, anchors the collection in both ecological and urban memory, emphasizing the museum's commitment to accessibility. This is also Monika Sosnowska sculpture. And it's nice because the new museum is very close to the metro station and the line goes straight to Brudno Park. So we are now trying to find some nice way to combine and to accommodate this trip as well, to be some experience. And finally, the challenges of the future. And yesterday, arriving to Kiruna and encountering more closely the whole history and present condition of this place, it brought me back to the dilemmas that and research that shaped my first curatorial project at the Museum of Modern Art in 2019. It was the exhibition, The Penumbral Age, that I co-curated with Sebastian Cichocki. And its opening was postponed by the pandemic. And yet my sense of belonging to the institution had begun earlier, because it was rooted also in my family background. I come from a line of art conservators, and that was also an issue in this exhibition. And from them, I absorbed the understanding of museum also as a site of, you can say, care and place where fragile work and fragile social ties as well are sustained, repaired, and protected. And that was this exhibition about also. And this tension between experiment and care, repairing and protecting fragile things, whether artworks or social bonds, guide my curatorial work today. This exhibition was very essayistic show, very poetic and reflective, although it was telling us the truths about catastrophe and Anthropocene. Okay, that was okay. Sorry. So that's the view of the exhibition. The show brought together artistic work from the past 50 years to explore how planetary change, climate crisis, environmental degradation, and shifting ecological system had reshaped both our world and our ways of seeing. It posed urgent questions about the irreversible and invited reflection on new forms of solidarity in response to Anthropocene. The exhibition traced how art, from land art, conceptualism, earth art, protest work, and spiritual practices, responded to science, social movements, and environmental ethics, not merely by documenting crisis, but imagining and fostering responsibilities at the time when conventional tools of persuasion and perception seemed no longer sufficient. This was the next very attended exhibition about the women's rights that was in the pavilion near Vistula River. I will just pass it through. I think I have to. Yeah. And in the new building, I must say, my heart beat faster as I recognized similarly multi-layered poetic references in the experimental exhibition and performative program that was recently in our building. It was the Cynics Republic, related through even more radical experiment unfolded in June 2025, when the Museum of Modern Art staged this ambitious project created by Pierre Balblanc in collaboration with Sebastian, as well as a kind of institutional rehearsal for the new context. And I really loved this project because it had the spirit of the old museum and this new building, because it was at once it was the exhibition and the public program. It drew on dematerialized works, so it was scores, protocols, films, and sound pieces from both MSN and collection of Contact in Vienna, activating them on site to propose a counter-narrative of performance grounded in ancient cynicism. The project unfolded across multiple formats: display, performance, screenings, and debate, making clear that the museum speaks not only within its galleries, but also in dialogue with its urban setting. A key component was this vertical exhibition, an unusual curatorial experiment that turned the building's monumental staircase into the narrative spine. Artworks installed across the successive floors revealed themselves as visitors ascended through the atrium, while performance program, video club, and cinema program hosted international and local artists exploring the body as medium, the stage as political space, and the museum as a site of live encounter. In this way, the Cynics Republic functioned as a rigorous trial of composite formats, part display, part choreography, part public life. A little later, together with the Wapping from London, we followed up in a similar spirit by putting together our own institutional sound check, you may say, in the form of the Sonics and Cynics Festival, and it will finish in a week. The festival wove together sound art and artists' film, emphasizing immersive cross-disciplinary works that challenge conventional narrative and mediate between the visual and performative and acoustic. Polish and British women artists formed the core of the program, bringing diverse perspectives and practices into dialogue. Importantly, the works did not remain confined to the designed exhibition halls. They unfolded across unexpected sites within the museum, temporarily inhabiting and transforming stairways, corridors, and in-between spaces in this parasitic, site-responsive character. And this is our cinema space. We can host like 150 people in the cinema, and cinema space will be connected to this very mysterious dark room. It is a black box that's going to be the restage of the experimental Polish radio studio that we have the equipment from, and we are waiting for the grant results to make the scenography by Oskar Hansen. That was originally made by him, and so we are waiting to see if this will be possible sooner or later, but it will be a great place of exchange and for the sound artists to come for the residencies and to work and to make music connected also with the screenings in the cinema. And let me finish with the reflection on the challenges we face in our new building. The move to Plac Centralny has transformed our capacities. We have now 20,000 square meters dedicated to exhibitions, education, research and public programs, a cinema, an auditorium, reading room, and central visibility we never enjoyed before. And I asked the communication department for some numbers before I came here. And since the opening of the new headquarters on Marszałkowska, more than 600,000 people have visited us. It's the number we never had before, and I was really like shocked, but that's the number I think we are expected to have now. And yeah, that's the huge responsibility. Yet greater opportunities bring heightened expectations. Our audience is now broader, also more diverse, less self-selecting. Numbers are closely monitored by different agents, and we are expected to deliver both large-scale, high-profile exhibition and meaningful community engagement, and to secure international visibility while staying locally relevant. And it's not an easy task. The challenge is not merely practical, but I think quite existential. How can we serve a wider public without diluting our identity I mentioned? And how can we stay faithful to the difficult questions, the experimental gestures, the art that disturbs rather than consoles? At stake here is not only our programming, but our very definition, I think, of what cultural institutions should be nowadays. And to close, I would like to return to the image from the Republic of Cynics, Roman Ondak's Crowd. This performance first realized at Kölnischer Kunstverein in 2004 and later reenacted at the opening at our museum, unfolds in a sudden act of collective interference, appearance and disappearance. Between 1 and 200 volunteers unfamiliar with the rituals of the contemporary art arrived in advance with no sense of what awaits them. At the official opening time during the speeches, they flood the space, exhibition space, momentarily transforming it into a scene of overwhelming attention and intensity. It was during the opening speeches. Directors, they also didn't know what's happening. People were going through them, and they vanished together moments later. In this simple yet radical gesture, Ondak destabilizes the expectations of unsuspecting audience, turning them equally into protagonists of the work. It is precisely, I think, this kind of disturbance that I would hope always to find space for in our museum, moments that interrupt, unsettle, and resist the comfort of stability, so that the new perspective may emerge in the institution may remain vibrantly alive. And yes, thank you very much for the attention, and I look forward to discussion.
Thank you so much, Jagna. I'm going to join you on stage. Extremely interesting. So I will ask a few questions, and then I hope that those of you in the space can follow up on that. So first, a very pragmatic question. What is your governance structure, and where does your money come from?
Yes, that's the question we all ask wherever we are. We are co-run by the ministry and the city. So ministry, we are been given grants for the collection, and the city owns the terrain under the building, and it was responsible for the building it.
And do you pay rent?
Yes, we pay, but it's a rent to the city.
Yeah, but is it sort of on a market level, or
no,
you have a subsidized rent?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I was fascinated with many things that you said, and I will start with something that reminded me of what the previous director of Moderna Museet in Stockholm once said, David Elliott. It was along the lines of, great museums always have interesting narratives. And what you have presented to us is a really interesting narrative. It's not just telling about we're doing this, we're doing that. It is part of a narrative. And I think this is important. And it's becoming even more important now when museums are being absorbed by the entertainment industry, the leisure business, etc., to have narratives like yours that are engaging, that are meaningful, etc. So that's not a question, it's more like a comment.
But I must say I agree. That's why I was really focused to find this narrative for myself also, because we were asked after the new building was like, what's next? What is your identity now? And I think those traces, even we are the young institution, are very important, and they were important for me when I was the public before I started to work there. And I think everybody has to find something, this root, because therefore, when we will try to be for everyone, it's impossible.
It's impossible to be for everyone, for sure. And you also warned against the risk of becoming diluted in one's activities at a museum. Another point that is striking to me is that you talk about expectations and demands, that you should attract a large audience, but at the same time you want to insist on integrity and on the things that the museum believes in with its current team. And I'm not sure I see that so often elsewhere. It seems as if this demand on high visitor numbers most of the time leads to some form of dilution.
We just entered this world. That's why it was more like things that I'm afraid to, because those numbers also, they were like abstract to me. But now, yes, that's what we are mainly doing in our program meetings, is to talk this through, like what's the popular format means to us. Where's the boundary we can touch? And so it's interesting, but also we are used to work in the, more how do you say, elastic environment that we can, make decisions more. And now we feel that responsibility. So I think it will change, but like inside, I'm still fighting with this notion to, be as popular as possible, or as,
Yeah, I think it's fine and even great to want to be popular. The problem enters if that means that you have to dilute something, or you have to compromise with integrity.
Yeah, but this compromise can be interesting as well. Like, what's your stake really in all of this? And I think these roots I mentioned, they are not our, it's not the history. It's more like this very poetic methodologies that I'm trying to stick on, and they are like helping me with finding the right way through all this,
And when I think of national museums of modern and contemporary art in the European context, and I compare it with what you talked about today, there seems to be a difference in terms of the proximity to the commercial art market. Because for those of you who are not working in the contemporary art sector, or with art museums in a broader sense, it should be mentioned that more and more art institutions, and specifically museums, are really more or less forced to work closely with galleries and collectors. They need real support in order to realize projects, and certainly this eventually also has an effect on what is being shown, on what big projects are being selected. So what is your comment on that in terms of your relationship to the commercial sector at the museum?
It's also quite new thing for us, because we were really like looking not to be too close for years. But what I'm observing traveling like here, for example, to Scandinavia, these sectors are very, very close. And I talked also with my friends from London, and this is like on a daily basis that you are really like friends with galleries. You are like attending the art fairs. Art fairs, of course, they have this one side which is commercial, but also they are like catalogs for us. Like we go to Art Basel and to browse into the new names, of course. We have some tools that are helping us to stay on the right side. For example, the commission that acquires the works to the collection. It consists not only from the curators, but also conservators, and it's really to present the work to acquire. It needs to do the right research, to have the right arguments that it fits, and that it's good within the whole constellation of works we are acquired. It was never the case that we are thinking through the gallery. We prefer also to buy, of course, from the artist. Sometimes it's impossible. But we are not pretending the galleries market that is being bigger and bigger in Poland. We will have the Warsaw Gallery Weekend soon, and many people are coming also. We are giving the space also and sharing some concepts, because we have to stick together, especially when we have some political problems. For example, during the right-wing governance a few years back, that was the gallerists that, along with us, they could do things that are not in the mind of the ruling people. So we have to stick to them, and of course mind the business.
Yeah, to create alliances, etc. It certainly is not a problem to be friends with galleries or to go to art fairs, etc. I think the problem really crystallizes when the effect of the reliance on that sector is clearly visible in a program of an institution. And actually one could also add, if art fairs are considered a main spot for acquiring new knowledge, then a little alarm clock rings in me, at least.
You have to have different threads, and the coalition, for example, like Internationale, is very nice also because all the institutions, public institutions that are there, they have collections, and we have loans, and this makes, organizing of the big exhibitions that we are doing now, because it's the first time we have the great facilities to host the institutional shows. It requires like 2 years prior the preparation, and it's also a very different mode, but we are trying to learn as much as possible from the another institutions.
This is a beautiful thing. Internationale, which also consists of the Moderna Galleria in Ljubljana, Van Museum in Eindhoven, Muka in Antwerp, and Reina Sofia in Madrid, and SALT in Istanbul.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, getting bigger. And you have existed for quite a long time, 10, 15 years, something like that. And one of the things that also can be an example, and maybe some others can learn from, is the way you describe how you lend works to each other. Because one of the challenges for art institutions today is to secure loans, because insurance values and transport is becoming so expensive. But somehow you have found a way of dealing with this and sort of supporting each other.
Yeah, and also the whole exhibitions, they are traveling, and I think this is also beautiful that they can accommodate in new homes and add some other chapters, and that's the new thing for us as well, because we didn't have the proper space.
Yeah, so it's not one exhibition which is a set package that travels, but it changes, and there are additions, and things are being left in the former location, so to speak. I have one more question, and then let's see if there are some questions from the floor, and that is connected to the council that you mentioned. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What is it, the full name? How does it work? Are the people who are involved funded for doing what they're doing, etc.?
Yes, I knew that it's resonance, so I asked my colleague who is responsible for these councils. This is the head of public program in our institution. That's the first thing that came up to us when we opened the new building, that we are not omnipotent. We don't know everyone that will come, so it will be great to have help with creating the public programs that are vivid and changing. So that's the council. It's about, I don't want to lie to you, but it's like 20 people, I think, from different sectors, but cultural mainly sectors, universities, NGOs, and other institutions, and also researchers that are trying to catch the different perspectives that we don't have being in the bubble. And they are, of course, being paid for their work. They are meeting once in 3 months, I think, and they have the 1 or 2 year, how do you call
tenure, or they're staying for
exactly
that period of time.
Yes, and they are advising, but also they are deciding, because we promised that 50% allocations will go to them, to their ideas of the threads of the program. So they are like recommending us to collaborate with this institution. We are asking them if this institution is okay, who are, every day we are getting like 10 or 12 propositions from outside also. It's very hard to filter everything, so they help also by advising us. And the second proposal is the proposal how to work with the artistic communities. It's a bit different, because their expectations are different. So we are trying to be open to the different levels and different spheres that we don't know they exist even. So it was very interesting meeting with those artists who are representing different organizations that we had no idea about, and what is their vision and how they can, not only collaborate but use our space, for example. Sometimes they just need a corner to gather and to talk things through. So we are learning from them as well.
Can you give an example of an activity that the council has suggested and that has been realized?
Yeah, there were some, I think, groups that they were meeting at the museum, and they were lecturing themselves how to, for example, apply for some grants. And there was some specialist coming, and he was explaining. And there are a lot of little initiatives like this planned, and it's going on weekends basically, and they are just ruling the educational space then.
Very interesting. So now let's see if we have someone on the floor. Yes.
Hi. Hey, thank you so much for the presentation. I wanted to hear a bit more about this passage that you mentioned inside the museum that you can go in and out. How does that does that resonate in the thinking about the program? It also reminded me of this kind of energy that you mentioned was in the shopping building. So I just wondering if you could tell a bit more about that.
Yeah, this is some natural thing that was planned. Good one. No, that was planned by the architect to open this street, because it was a very strange place that was changing all the time, this square, and people were crossing it. There was a parking lot, for some time there was a market, many different things. And parallel to this, there is the most busy street in Warsaw with the shopping centers, and very nice also, like architecture from the 60s. So our building just closed this street, you can say, like built the street for the first time after war. And we are this natural passage to the square, because in the Palace of Culture there are a lot of institutions, there are bars, people are spending time there. And that was in our imagination, like, in MoMA, people will come and sit and have a coffee, and then they will go. And like in the gardens in Paris, they could have the chair and move it from one side to another. And for the few first months, it was very complicated, because there was still renovation work outside on the square. And people were they were coming and going out in the same way. But when the square opened in May this year, with the trees, with the little water, it all changed, and people are really almost like riding on their skateboards through the museum. And I really love this vibe. And I would love to have this staircase also free of charge, but we are now working on it. But it needs a lot of more people to check the tickets, blah, blah, blah. It's complicated, but it's been a great pleasure to watch people just hanging out, some youth sitting on the floor, and that's the building I really love.
Sounds super nice, and it made me think of where we are now at Kin Museum of Contemporary Art in Kiruna, which is 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, and we're located inside the city hall. And this is a cold climate, and the city hall is next to the main bus stop in New Kiruna, which means that the city hall, and to some extent also the museum, is a very nice and warm place to wait for the bus. But there are also consequences of that, because people are wearing spikes in the winter in order not to slip. And therefore, you cannot wear your spikes inside on the very nice black stone floor. So the municipality provides the visitors with slippers. So you can take off your shoes with spikes and put on your slippers. So there are always these special arrangements, what is possible and not possible?
We have opposite thing because it's getting hot and the summers are pretty hot in Poland now, and we are giving a nice shade because the museum is surrounded by this little arcade. So people are just spending time also in the shade, and now while we are planning the sculpture exhibition there, we have to think also to leave some space to the people that will be sitting there.
And let's see if we have more questions. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. My question about the museum structure, because you started by asking about the team in a different way in the context of transformation of museum strategy. Could you comment on how the museum's departments works together in implementing the strategy, the new strategy, and what helps you realize the strategy on a day-to-day basis? Thanks.
Yeah, this is very new also because when I entered the museum in 2019, I think it was, the crew was like around 40 people, and now it's 120. So it's really, we had during the building of the new headquarters, it was very visible that the administration crew or the lawyers, infrastructure departments, they were growing like really, really fast. So we had to figure out from the inside how to work together, and there is the whole new structure of meetings, for example, in the museum, that we have the whole team meetings once in a month when we are all updated, and it's we noticed that it's very important to be on the same page, for example, with the accountants, because otherwise they don't know what to prioritize, and we have to discuss what is our priority, because then communication department is lost when, you know. So it's very important, those meetings. And also we are implementing the project-based work. So every project, every exhibition, every public program has its own crew, and we are meeting every week with one person from the production, one from the communication, one from the education, and we have those micro teams within the staff that are working on the and reporting to the curatorial meetings every week as well. So it's like we are trying different ways, but it's about the communication basically.
Do you feel that it is working?
Sometimes yes, sometimes not, but I think we are on the way to deal with it. We have to just try it. It's just
It's important to speak about these organizational issues, about processes, etc. Maybe we don't do that enough, at least not in public, because many things can be learned from how other people, other institutions deal with it.
And there is no thing more annoying than, you know, big words and trying to be, you know, horizontal, blah, 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 and then not really doing it because you are lost with the tools. So I think the experimenting is the only way that you can do, and then you have to sometimes take the step back and then ask yourself if it's really working. But therefore, yeah, we ended up at some point with having a lot of meetings that were completely useless.
So I see one more hand here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very interesting. And I think that there was some focus areas which was more interesting than others, like that you are working around or collaborating closely with artistic practices. That's one. And that you're hosting, also in the geopolitical scenario of Ukraine, you're hosting the biennial. That's wonderful. So thank you. And then you have the satellite program with the ecological perspective, the park, the Bruno, the park, and what else? The Oscar Hansen project. I didn't really follow it. If that was one of the satellite programs. I think that when you talk about porosity, I'm curious how much that feeds into to your strategy, rather than hosting an art market, for instance. This is a kind of the opposite way of thinking and working around outside the center of Warsaw, in the countryside with Oscar Hansen's property, housing, community. Yeah. Do you follow the question?
Yeah, but these are like parallel ways, I must say. As curators, we are, I think, finding our ways, and those examples I gave are very important for my practice. They are very different examples, and people are, working more with architecture. Some are more focused on some media, but our educational department, they are, curating their own great projects as well. So I think it's not something that is contradictory. It's something that the museum can be used in many ways, but we have to have this, spine of ourselves. And what I'm trying to do by this projects, for example, this sound festival, is to researching how museum can accommodate things that are not just in the line of the normal programming. Of course, these are like satellite projects and they are not super well attended, but I think this is our, but it's very important to have them parallelly to the main programming. And we are not hosting art fairs, no, it wasn't. We are just, not excluding the people from the taking part.
I just meant that I was so impressed.
Aha, okay.
That it's a reverse situation somehow.
Ah.
Instead of following the market, you are working.
Okay. Yeah,
that's
that's
following Maria Lind's curating also. I think that's how
Okay.
you learn learning
you.
practice of
Thank you.
the
And
sensitivity. So thank you for that.
yeah, if you are in Warsaw, I would gladly take you to the Hansen House. It's because I assume you are the artist, so it's a place that is really inspirational.
The Oscar Hansen House. A few words about that would be valuable. So it is his house, as you explained. It has a number in your collection, so it belongs to the collection, and yet it is constantly being activated. How long did it take you to set this up and to make it work?
It was, I forgot now. It's a decade, I think, and it has also the another network of the so-called iconic houses. I think there is this network in the art worlds also, and there is one curator in the crew that is responsible for it. It's Thomas Phifer, who is very specialized in the architecture, so he also takes care of its renovation, and he has to apply with another grants to treat it as another kind of the location. But I must say that I love this place, and sometimes I just go to have my mind clear, because it's really near the river, and it's all the summer schools and educational projects I had, we were organizing there also, because somehow you can feel through this practice of Oscar Hansen and architecture itself, you can feel this open form vibe, even if it's not clear for you what was the theory of it. So yeah, it's really amazing place, and it takes a lot of care to maintain it.
I'm sure it's labor intensive and costly. And can visitors just come by? Does it have regular opening hours?
During the summer, we have some opening hours, but it's during the weekend, and normally it demands also, we are organizing the biking trips, different formats. From Warsaw, it's like 70 kilometers, so it's pretty demanding, and I've never done this. But you can take the bike to the train, and then, and sometimes we are having the buses, so there are different formats, yeah.
And finally, Gunnar Ardelius, I'm curious, as the Secretary General of Sveriges Museer, do you have thoughts or comments in relation to what has been presented and discussed?
I think it was an absolutely wonderful presentation, Jagna. Thank you. I always think it's really inspiring when you have a new building and the way you have to rethink and you rethink your practice and do it in a new way, and the way also the society changes around the new building, and the museum have to change with the society. And yeah, I think it's really inspiring for the Swedish public.
Yeah, I was, as I told you before the discussion, I was in Malmö, and we were there when the decision of for the Malmö Kunstmuseum to have this new building in the old casino house, which is pretty amazing, but needs a lot of work. So I think now with all this experience that make us very, I think I was proud to be in this period of time in the museum, because you learn a lot, but you are also together, and there's automatically the hierarchy in the museum is, lowering. It's we are all in the new situation, and it's easier, I think, also for the new people in the museum to work together, because we are in this, everybody feels like we are in this new situation. And we are not in this clan anymore of the curatorial team. And it's very interesting process, and we would like to help, I think, the others. So I already invited the crew from Malmö to come, because it's not only the building and renovation, which is exhausting, but also changing the way you really move through the program, and you, for example, treat your collection, because we rewrote every description to the new catalog. It was outdated. We had to think about the system of the collection. It was like the ontological question, really, how the objects are in the new building. So yeah, it's interesting and complicated.
So thank you so much, Jagna. I
Thank you for
believe
having
that
me.
it is Warsaw and the Museum of Modern Art there next for many of us. And second, Gothenburg. The next seminar in the Röska Museet at the beginning of December with Victoria Lynn. Thank you, Sveriges Museer, for this collaboration. Thank you for joining us online. And thank you for joining us in the flesh in Kiruna.
Yeah, thank you so much.